Yes, I know good and darn well. It is spring football season. We've covered a multitude of position breakdowns thus far. We have many more positions to come. But even though it's spring football season, a lot of people don't necessarily take a lot of stock in knowing that it's also softball season. Yeah, and we're that dang good. Good enough to win a national title? I don't know. Let's ask somebody who has a little bit more knowledge than I do.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. So, yeah, we're going to roll right into this. I have a special guest today because I study as much as I can about softball, but I don't have direct access like some people do. Some people are in the cool kid club. So let's go ahead and welcome Miss Aubyn Phippen from the Cool Kid Club. How are you doing?
I'm good. I don't know if I would consider myself in the Cool Kid Club yet.
Oh,
but
come
I'll
on
take
now.
it. I'll take it.
All right. So thank you very, very much for coming on the program here. I'm trying to give softball a bigger voice because it deserves it, especially Stillwater Oklahoma softball, because we produce a pretty good brand. Heck, the state of Oklahoma officially owns the sport, right?
I mean, technically, yeah.
And you involving with the franchise, kind of give us a little bit of a rundown. How'd you get into this game, and how did you get your phenomenal co-host, Miss Chelsea Alexander?
Yeah, so it's a pretty fun story with Chelsea, and I'll get to that in a second. But I started the franchise last May, so of 2022. I started interning there under Jerry Ramsey, and I was just doing producing, and they were just kind of, doing typical intern stuff. He's just showing you the ropes. It's usually only a 3-month internship. I got it through the sales guy who's, if anyone knows anything about OU baseball or softball, Taylor Maples is our sales guy, and he was actually my brother's best friend in their wedding together, all that good stuff. But he's the PA voice for OU softball, and he's also sales rep at the franchise. And so he got me the internship. Shout out Taylor. And then I started doing whatever at the franchise, producing, doing all that stuff. And I was like, OU's the flagship station for OU, so we have to cover a lot of OU stuff. Yeah, which is totally fine. That's their job. And a lot of them would say that they're not fans, that they just cover OU, which is true. Because if I got ever said I was an OSU fan, I got in so much trouble. They're like, you're not a fan, you cover them. And I'm like, okay. So I'm learning that line right now. But so finally, after my 3 months, I was just kind of, Randy Heights, who is, owns most of it and, does the franchise part of Tyler Media. He's like, I can promise you a job, like when softball season starts, you can produce the OU softball games. And so that's how I work for the franchise. I produce OU softball games from the station whenever they're playing, because we have all the OU softball games. And I was like, okay. And a guy named Ryan Chapman he does the Chisholm and Chapman show. He does a lot of stuff for All Sooners. I'm pretty sure it's All Sooners. I'm going to double check that. But he does a lot of softball stuff, and he's kind of like the OU softball guy. And he came up to me in January. He's like, hey, what do you think about, doing some OSU softball stuff? And I was like, what about a podcast? And he's like, yeah, let's try it. And I was like, okay. And so I knew if I was going to, because, such a niche fan base, specifically OSU softball, like I'm going to have to find some listeners. And I was like, if I'm going to do that, I really need like a solid co-host who really knows what they're talking about. And I was like, well, I'm just going to, DM this girl, Chelsea Alexander, who you're an OSU fan or softball fan, you should know who she is. She just signed with Oklahoma City Spark, which will be a professional softball team in the city. And I was like, I'm just going to reach out to her. I mean, all she can do is tell me no. And so I put it out there and I was like, if you want to meet up and talk about this. So we met up and she told me, I mean, she's insane. She works 9 to 5 working for the OSU health department, like with Dr. Strom got her that job, and she's planning a wedding in June. She just signed with Oklahoma City Spark, and that starts in June. And then now she's doing this weekly podcast with me. So she has been awesome, just fully diving in and trusting me to come and do it. And it's been great. We just released our 6th episode, and yes. I mean, I think we're doing okay right now. I have her, so thankfully she's kind of my in. Like if I see anybody and they don't know who I am, I'm like, hi. I'm like, I know Chelsea Alexander, and they're like, oh yeah, we love Chelsea, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just use her.
No, I completely get it. And yes, so everybody make sure you go check out the Cowgirl Corner podcast.
I know it's so hard to say sometimes. It's a tongue twister.
They just had Sydney Pennington on. They've had current players on. And it's just what I love about podcast and podcasting is it's a conversation, right? And you have a little bit of a radio background. You know everything in radio is pretty, I don't want to say scripted, but it's pretty
it's scripted in a way. It's like, so the way we do it is, we have like 3 commercial breaks. So, I mean, we just have big story of the day. So whatever the main event is, like recently it's been Thunder stuff. And so big story of the day at the top of every hour. That's just how Jerry is. Some of the guys like just go in there and they can just talk, right off everything. For me, I'm like, I need a game plan. So what's today look like? Just a little bit. So I feel better about myself.
I dig it.
I messaged you and I was like, so what are we talking about? And you're like, you're one of 2 people to ask me.
Yep. It's not a question I get very often. And here's the funny part about it is I've never had a player, NFL or OSU, ask. I just, we just go, but
because they know they love, because they get to talk about themselves, and that's like with the whole show.
It makes it no, come on.
Hey, let's have on all the players and let them and Chelsea just, talk it out.
It is a lot of fun, but podcasting, it's like it's a conversation, right?
Yeah, it's more authentic almost.
Like I told you off air, like I take notes religiously. I'm one of those people that when I write it down, I'm able to typically commit it to memory. But yeah, like to me, if I were to, I have tried to script once and all it did was stress me out. Right. Yeah. I was like, no, it's a conversation. And the beauty of it is I bleed orange. I study a little bit of everything. I've admitted to my peoples out there, if you're looking for some tennis, I don't know anything about tennis. So I'm not really going to be much of a tennis guy, right? But the baseball, softball side of things has always been intriguing to me. Like I grew up with baseball being a serious contender every single year. But meanwhile, I also grew up with softball. Like we were guaranteed to be in right around last place. It was what it was. So I grew up not having much knowledge of the Michele Smith days, right? I didn't realize we were that dominant in the 80s. I didn't realize we had the greatest player in the history of softball. I honestly didn't realize that. I knew how good baseball was. I went to almost every baseball game. But to see the transition now, it's just it's fun to watch. It really is to see where Coach Kenny Gajewski has us now, which, right, okay, we're going to roll into, and we're going to start talking a little bit about pitcher, because I think that is always the position that dictates whether you're going to beat OU or not. But real quick, I do have to let the fine people out here know that today we are brought to you by FanDuel. And you guys, no matter where you're at in your bracket, all right, it's still a good opportunity for you to utilize the no sweat first bet that we're rocking right now at FanDuel. So again, it is America's #1 sports book, and we're giving you this no sweat first bet, which is up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up today, and get your shot at this no sweat first bet. You already know you can wager on and things from money lines to point spreads to who's going to shoot the next three, who's going to score the next bucket, who's going to cut down the net and win the whole daggone thing. The app is super safe, secure, and easy to use. So don't miss this opportunity of your $1,000 back in bonus bets at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up today. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel. All right, so the pitching department. That has been, over the years, what has really kind of made OU, the Alabama of softball, is nobody had as deep a staff as they did. Now, coming into this season, everybody knew that was going to be the case again, except for there was a lot of talk about UCLA potentially being the next best staff in America. They have a good staff, but
well, they're just traditionally good too. UCLA.
If Kyra Aycock can continue at the rate she's been the last couple outings, I think we definitely have at least a debate on having the next staff. So is this staff, that's probably the second best staff in America, is it good enough to chop down the tree that lives up in Norman?
Yeah, so I mean, we all know about Kelly Maxwell, obviously. If you watch anything about OC softball, you know who Kelly is. I mean, she kind of was our crutch last year, really. She took us a long ways until she kind of got tired at the end of the year, which, I mean, I think is just because we used her a lot, and that's just what happens when you have injuries. But, I mean, she's good, though, obviously. She's top 5 pitcher in a lot of her stats. So we know what Kelly brings to the table, and it's nice because we get her for another year too.
Yes, that's huge.
But yeah, the thing that makes you stand out in softball, really, I mean, you can ride a pitcher like Maxwell for a long time, or a Jordy Ball at OU for a long time, because it's not like baseball to where, you know, the pitching form is so much different. It's underhand compared to overhand, where you're worried about injuries a lot more at baseball. So you can really ride a pitcher for a long time, and
it's biometrically better on the body, correct?
Yes, it is. It's a lot easier to play, you know. I mean, I think she pitched almost 140 pitches one of the games this weekend. Like, that's unheard of in baseball. You don't do that.
Yeah, you do that in baseball, somebody's getting fired.
Exactly. And I know in high school there's like pitching baseball rules. If you throw so over many pitches, you can't play in the next game. But anyway, yeah, but that really makes a difference, especially when you're going from a team in the past few years who's been, oh, we're excited to be top 25 to, oh, we expect to be a top 5 team now. And so to have a pitching staff, and you said Kyra Aycock, which I think she's great, especially being a freshman, what she brings to the table. But specifically this year, what Lexi Kilfoyl brings to the table is something that is very special. I mean, I think she's 6 foot or 6'1". I mean, I had a video of her after the game on Saturday, and I was literally like, not eye level at all. I mean, I'm 5 foot nothing, but I was like, oh my gosh. But she's just got pitcher of the week for the second time this year, and no other pitcher in the Big 12 has done that. So what she brings to the table is pretty spectacular. Her changeup and her different pitches that she can bring is really impressive. And you see that was great. We got her from Alabama. Coach G got her from the portal, which was probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest gets out of the portal other than Rachel Becker.
Coach G owns the portal.
He really does right now. And that's why when people tell me, they're like, you know, we have so many super seniors on this team, you know, from COVID year that are graduate students, which you don't see. I mean, that doesn't happen because it's only because COVID. But they're like, aren't you a little nervous about what next year's? And I'm like, we said that last year whenever we lost, you know, we're going to lose Sydney, we're going to lose Chelsea, we're going to lose Brant. Like, we said that last year, and I don't know why we continue to underestimate Coach G with the portal, because he uses it to his advantage very well and gets players. I mean, yeah, so I'm all that to say. But yes, pitching is great this year, and I think we're a lot deeper than we normally are, and that's the difference between a number 2 team and a number 25 team. So
100%. Yeah, you know, you're right. you can lean into a pitcher, and we've seen that, right? Traditionally speaking, as O State fans with the Sam Shao show. So shout out to Samantha Shao for the bat flip heard around the world that kind of helped put O State on the map. Let's be 100% realistic. And her experience at Oklahoma State was so phenomenal, and she spoke so highly of it. It allowed other transfers to be like, well, let me check into this, right? And then look, Miranda Ellis, you brought up last year, we had to ride Kelly at the end because Miranda gets hurt. If Miranda Ellis does not get hurt right before the Big 12 tournament, I think last year's a different conversation, and Texas isn't a part of it. We had to ride Kelly, and Morgan Day did a very, very good job stepping up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not the same, right? When you had Kelly and Miranda, you had a 1-2, you have a legit two-piece combo, and then you had somebody like a Morgan Day who you knew was going to be a good midweek type of person that was going to put up quality starts as well. And then we lost that. So then we had to lean on Kelly and Morgan. And like just like you said, yeah, it's a little bit easier in softball due to the biometrics, but you know when you get there and it's I can't say, I want to say nut cutting time, but it doesn't really apply here. When it gets to the metal meets the road, right? When you're going to play for a national title, what has separated OU from everybody else? Yeah, I know Jocelyn Allo owns a bunch of home run records, and that's fun, but their staff, and even right now, they have 2 pitchers under a .80. Under. Like,
but whenever you think of, and that just kind of shows why we're getting so many portal people, is whenever you're thinking about going to OU, why do you go to OU to play? To play for Coach Gasso, a coach who's won 6 national championships, who she is all in on softball. That's why all these portal girls are coming, is because they see what Coach G is doing and what kind of person he is, and how much. I have never heard a single player since I've started doing this in just the past few months, which is not very many people, but still the people I hear from, they're like, we absolutely love him because he loves us and he genuinely cares about us as human beings too. It doesn't just see us as another player, but someone who could benefit at this program. And so that is really the big difference maker right now, what he's doing. He's kind of becoming his own little Patty Gasco in Stillwater. So
100%. And it's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of the conversation seems to be when, not if, but when will he leave Oklahoma State, right? Because he played baseball at OU. He's won national titles coaching at Florida. Coach Walton at Florida, I guess, is on a little bit of a hot seat. But I believe when we get this new softball stadium built, I don't see him going anywhere.
Because that stadium is for him, really. I mean, it's for the players, obviously, but I think it's Oklahoma State's, way to say, here's this, please don't leave. Like, we really want you to stay.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know he had his hand in a lot of things that are being built. So
yes, well, Texas, before they hired White, they tried to empty a bag on him when he was real early on into Oklahoma State. So that was a little scary. Turn that down. Last year, A&M offers him the stars, the sun, and the moon all roped together. He turns them down. So that tells me that, okay, if he were to ever go anywhere, it would only be maybe Florida, maybe OU. And if we build the stadium and he wins a natty in Stillwater, I don't ever see that happening. I don't see him leaving.
Yeah.
If we give him, because so far it's been, one of those old school, like, we're going to shake hands and we're going to agree to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until recently, with the unveiling of the new athletic plan, it's all been talk, right? It's been talk that we need a new softball stadium. It's been talk.
And I heard it's the first thing they're doing. I think it's the first thing they're building too.
Well, it better be. It absolutely. There will be a mutiny. I'm talking about fans who've never watched, State fans who've never watched a softball game would probably agree that if softball doesn't come next, there's a problem. Now, the argument can be made about wrestling because it was the first conversation about, updating that stuff before we brought in Coach G. But you got to get with the times, as they say. John Smith is the most legendary coach in the history of wrestling. That'll never change, right? But wrestling is not at a peak right now. We're in a rebuild mode. For Oklahoma State fans, yes.
But wrestling is going to get their stuff this year, too, with all that. So that's a good thing.
I agree.
They just realized the importance of Coach G staying, so they're like, okay, we're gonna get this done, and of course, wrestling, you're gonna get your stuff because you are
100%.
right up there with it.
And I mean, we'll be honest. In my opinion, they shouldn't have waited this daggone long. Like, there's been conversations
They should have
tearing down Ali P.
Yeah. As soon as he got hired, I think there should have been talk about it, but that's okay. We're here now, 7 years later.
That's right. And he knows it's coming, and that's got to feel good for him, right? Everybody, no matter what you do, what job, everybody, you want to feel appreciated, or at least you want to know that what you're doing is a quality job. And that's all it is for Coach Kenny G. He's not taking bukus of money. Could we maybe pay him more? Probably. Does he know that? I'm sure he probably does. But he wants the stadium for the university, for the girls, for recruiting. You know what I mean? And I think that it's taken some time to not only see that Coach Kenny Gajewski is like the most real human being you could physically possibly want. And we better lean into him because unfortunately, the NCAA doesn't recognize as equestrian, although they do have a recognizing body now. It's like the NCSCA or something like that. So they get a legit national championship, but it's not an NCAA national championship. So the next sport, in my opinion, that should win a real legit NCAA national title, it's got to be softball right now.
I mean, they're on the track. They're playing like a number 2 team if you watch them. I mean, the way they play, their defense is honestly, we have the best middle infield. I don't want to say in the country, but I think we might have the best middle infield in the country. I might get hate for that, but that's okay.
No, I don't think you would, because correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Rachel Becker come from playing shortstop at the last big time, massive university she was at?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I think we have the best middle infield, because Rachel Becker has experience at shortstop before this for 4 years, and now she moves over to second base and makes it look like it's the easiest position to play.
Which is unheard of, right?
Yeah.
She could have gone anywhere and played shortstop. She chose to come to Oklahoma State to play second base.
And be our number 1 hitter who is averaging .550 batting average. Just throwing that out there for anyone who knows stats about baseball. That's insane.
She's number 1 in the Big 12 in batting average, number 1 in triples, number 1 in on base percentage.
Is she above Jada Coleman?
She's above Jada Coleman in a bunch of stats.
Because I know her and Jada are like right there for being the 2 best one-holes in the country.
Now you're gonna make me look it up.
Because Jada is a stud.
Yes, she is. She's at 5'18".
Okay,
Jada's at 500 on the dot.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
love to see that.
But we've got her now. Pitching. That's when you click over to pitching, and let's see. Okay.
OU has I'm not gonna lie, they have one of the better pitching staffs they've had in a while right now.
Yeah, they have. So they hold the number 1 and 2 ERAs in the Big 12 with Nicole May at .39. Alex, please say that last name for me because I can't say it.
Storako.
Yay, .80. And then you have the girl from Baylor, who we should probably give a shout out to. It's Dariana Orm. She's just above a 1.0 ERA with a 1.04. And then you have Lexi Kilfoyl, and then Ludwig from Kansas, Jordy Ball from OU, and then Kelly Maxwell. So if you go off of statistics, OU goes 3 All-Americans deep. Just off of stats, right? There's a long way to go, but goodness me.
I think that's what people didn't really it's OU, expect them to be amazing, but I don't think people really expected OU's pitching staff to show out like they have this year.
Yeah, no, I've been telling people for months, this is the year that we have a better pitching staff than OU.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we have better pitching staff than OU because OU is deep, but we have the capability. We're as deep as they are, at least, and we haven't been able to say that in previous years.
Correct. Yes, I completely agree. Well, and another thing is just we brought up Alo, right? All those home run records and stuff that she has.
Mm-hmm.
The hitting was something that you noticed a difference in Bedlam's softball, right? Close game, close game, close game. OU hits a 3-run bomb. That's been the story of Bedlam softball.
Their hitting's crazy.
But this year, our hitting is better than I think it's been in the last couple of seasons. You know, small ball is a term that's used primarily for teams that don't have like a lot of power in their lineup, right? And so you use the bunt game and shifts and things of that nature to kind of limit the other team's capabilities. I don't want to say that we're a small ball team because we have been previously, but kind of like baseball, we have a team that can hit with power, but we also have some people sprinkled in there that are built for more of a small ball, like a Taylor Edwards, right? So we have the best of both worlds. The pitching staff is close, not quite where OU is. Okay, that's fine. I can accept that. But the hitting game, I think this might be 100%. The first year we're gonna have the opportunity to go bomb for bomb with them or triple for triple with them if need be, if we can hit off the pitching.
Yeah, I mean, if you watched OSU early in the year, they went to Florida to the Clearwater tournament there, and I think they played 5 games, maybe 5 or 6. 5 or 6, can't remember exactly, but they hit 11, 12 home runs that weekend. Like they were averaging like 1.5 home runs every single game at least. Like they were hitting insane. And Kylie Naomi, the way she's been hitting this year, especially compared to her last season, like the way she stepped up at short, well, she's good at shortstops, we know that, but the way she stepped up hitting this year is crazy. I think that she almost has 10 home runs on the year. Let me look at that. But Kylie Naomi.
Yeah, she has 8.
8, yeah.
Pretty sure.
So her and Morgan Wynn has hit quite a bit. I think her and Morgan are probably neck and neck, but yeah, it's nice to know that we can. It feels good knowing that we actually have power hitters. Like,
yes,
so that's fun. It's fun to hit a lot of home runs.
And for me, it's been a lot of pleasant surprises, right? Because last year, Carly Petty, obviously, we knew that she could launch the long ball. Caitlin Carwile's no more of a speedster, but she's got a little bit more pop in her bat this year. I honestly, maybe if I would have pegged anyone preseason to lead the team in homers, it'd have been Chyenne Factor. But yeah, Kylie's having a very good year. And so I brought up Caitlin Carwile. So it's funny. Caitlin Carwile reminds me a lot of Chelsea Alexander. Please tell me I'm not right.
No, you're 100% right. She's definitely Chelsea right field 2.0. Like she's definitely a little Chelsea out there.
And okay, I do have a question. We haven't even got into the young ones, which I really, really want to do because we got to see some of them the other day, right? We've seen some of the freshmen get on the field, and it really is a good segue because, you know, we were just having that conversation was, well, what's next year going to be like? Because we lose X, Y, and Z and X, Y, and Z. And Kenny Gajewski's legitimately got this to a level that just like we should never rebuild in football. Like Gundy has been that successful consistently that the rebuild thing, in my opinion, shouldn't be a conversation, but we'll talk about that at a different time. Coach Kenny Gajewski has that in softball. We don't talk rebuild anymore. It's reload. And instead of reloading off of just transfers, now due to recruiting uptick in the last few years, now we're going to be able to reload from within, which I think is kind of new. Right? We've always had to go get somebody, right, to help us in the circle. That is every year that's been a thing. Did we have to this year with Kelly Maxwell? No, we didn't have to, but we were put ourselves in a position that we're fortunate enough to now be able to not pick and choose. But if you're not going to OU and you're a pretty good pitcher, I mean, Oklahoma State, UCLA, Florida State, right? There's not a lot of other places that you know can get the best out of you. So from a defensive, offensive perspective, the biggest conundrum on this roster is Megan Bloodworth to me. There's times where I'm like, she's an All-American.
Yeah.
And then there's times you're like, how'd she do that? Like she makes ESPN level highlight plays, but then she also does some head scratching stuff.
Yeah.
Is that
for sure?
Is that something that is just, I don't know, is this what we can expect out of Megan? A bunch of complete badassery mixed in with a couple of head scratchers? Or do you think that she's just not quite molded into what she's going to be for Coach G yet?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I know Megan, we see that she's a great third baseman. I mean, she makes incredible plays. And I think all that to say is, like, it's just hard to replace a Sydney Pennington. Like, I don't want to say that, like, that she is not capable of that. But I think maybe just feeling the pressure, and she is only a sophomore. And so feeling the pressure of, like, being young still, and maybe feel like I have big shoes to fill, and kind of feeling that a little bit. But I know she did struggle there for the last few games, but this weekend after Friday and her getting that walk-off single, I think that Coach G was saying, she felt a really big weight come off her shoulders, knowing that, hey, I do like this lineup is because we have other players off the bench that we can put in. We have a Katie Lott, we have Tim, we have Scotland David. Like, we can easily go with other people off the bench. So I think that she's probably just feeling the pressure of, like, I have to fight for this spot in the lineup because we're not just 9 deep on the lineup. We have other girls that can come off the bench and really hit well in big situations like that. So I think that was kind of her test, Coach G's test. Like, okay, like, if you want to fight to be in this lineup, like, this is a perfect chance for you to do that. And she did. She got a walk-off single to left field and
scored.
And yeah, so she delivered for sure. So I think that she's good with the pressure. I think maybe sometimes I think she's good under pressure in, situations like that, but maybe she's feeling the pressure of, like, I have so much to live up to, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah. And I don't want to talk bad about her, and I'm not,
at all.
But I think she definitely struggled a little bit there, probably just trying to find her way. I mean, that's just playing diamond sport. You fail way more than you ever succeed in this sport. Going to say, like, people are like, they don't know anything about baseball or softball. They're like, why is 500 good? Shouldn't she have like 6 or 7? I'm like, no, like, you don't understand how hard the sport is. Like, to have a 350 batting average is good. So yeah, you definitely fail a lot more in the sport than you succeed, and that just comes with it. And I think she just maybe felt the pressure there for a little bit of, I'm playing for the number 2 team in the country. We expect to win every single game from now on until, maybe we play OU, but even then, still expecting. So yeah, I'm not too worried about her just yet. It's still early in the season, and I don't want to say the good thing is we have people that can come off the bench, and we're deep like that this year. So
it is a blessing to be able to finally say that all over the field. So you mentioned a lot of the young guns that we have coming up that have had some time on the field, and it's been very productive, which does nothing but helps your starters, right? Because it's that constant motivation of, I got to stay prepared. I got to stay on the grind. I got to be ready 24/7. But so I do want to talk about some of the young guns. So we're going to do that right after this. We're going to roll this into a part 2. Okay. And I'll steal you for a few more minutes. All right. All right. So we're going to roll right in there. So that's all we have for this one, guys. Obviously, come check out part 2 so you can kind of get an update on some of the young guns that we have coming up with the roster for Coach Kenny Gajewski at Oklahoma State softball. Until then, as always, I love you all. God bless. Go Pokes, and we will see you on the next one. Later.